in today's video. I speak to Lord Touhig. I first met Lord Touhig in 2018 and we've stayed in touch ever since. Lord Touhig is a respected voice in the House of Lords. Throughout his career he has been a strong advocate for disability rights and inclusive policy, using his platform to raise awareness and drive meaningful change across government and society. With decades of experience in public service, he brings a unique perspective on how legislation, leadership and lived experience can come together to create a more inclusive world. As conversations around autism continue to grow, voices like his play an important role in bridging the gap between policy and real-world impact. We speak about what he wants to see in government and employment, what his thoughts are on the white paper, what changes can be made for autistic people, and what made him get into politics. Hey guys, and welcome to the last episode of the Autism Connections Series 7. And guys, we have a really big guest on today. I met him first in 2018 and met him down in Parliament. He is just an amazing ambassador for autism, to the point where he even came down to my work at the time just to see how I was getting on. So guys, without further ado, as you can tell by the intro as well, my guest today is Lord Touhig. So Lord Touhig, thank you for joining us on the last episode of Series 7 of the Autism Connections. I just can't believe how long it has been since we last met up and everything else. How are you? And I ask this on everyone on the show, what is your connection to autism?
Well, the first time we met, it was an a joint meeting of the All-Party Group on Autism and the APPG All-Party Group on apprenticeships, I think it was.
That's it. Yeah.
And I met you. I met someone from who worked at the cafe on the Olympic Park site. She had speech difficulties. I went to visit them, and I was greeted by an autistic young person who showed me around. She was the chef that day. It was amazing, And then, of course, having met you, I then came to.
You did?
To that housing association you were working for, and I remember you telling me that you tried several times to get a job there, but you couldn't pass the maths. I'd be the same, but they were so impressed with you that they were determined you're going to be on their staff anyway. And we had a good time there, good visit, and so on. And I remember you saying to me a couple of things, that if they change the name of this organisation, that won't be a problem. If they move the stores, that's a problem. And very often, I think you were so much part of the team. You were so totally part of it, integrated, friends, colleagues. You had to say to them sometimes, hey, I'm autistic. It takes me a little more time to process things. But I think that was, you had the support, as you told me, when you were younger. And I think that and your determination to benefit. I mean, look at the things you've done, the Princess Diana Award, actor. It's amazing. And for the last 2 and a bit years, my whole focus in Parliament, as far as autism is concerned, is trying to get opportunities for people with autism to get a job. Just 3 out of 10 autistic people get a job, 7 out of 10 want a job. And what I've been doing, I've been going around the country visiting businesses that employ people with autism. We have a business here near where I live, and they take on 8 or 10 people with learning difficulties or autism each year. They go around work in every department in the business, and if one of them works, they offer them a job at the end of the day. There's another one in the cafe. It's a charity, and they take on a number of people each year as trainee baristas. They train them. They have a quiet room space and so on if they have any problems. They train them up, and after a year, they find them a job, and they do find them a job, and then they support the employer and the young barista for 6 months. And, I've often said, it's all very well for me as a politician to say, hey, your company ought to be employing people with autism and so on and so forth. So we have now employed somebody in the House of Lords in the catering department as a result of us meeting. And I say, we should be doing what we're asking others to do. And my battle over the last year or more now has been to try and persuade the government to look at companies like people down here, like the cafe, and try and get the people who run those as promoters, as mentors for persuading other companies to do the same. Because, I mean, with the best will in the world, if I'm running a business and someone says, "Hey, Don, there's a young autistic person would like a job," would he or she fit in? Oh, how would the staff? All perfectly valid questions. But Max, if you've got people who run businesses who have done that, then they're the ones. Oh, well, I tell you what happened on the first day here, and you will get confidence. It's so important. And Robert Buckland, former Conservative MP, Conservative Minister, did a report on employment and autism, a very good report. Unfortunately, we're don't seem to be taking some of his recommendations forward very rapidly. And when I'm constantly asking questions now in Parliament, I get answers drawn up by civil servants. Perfectly proper, but talking about neurodiverse people. I'm not talking about neurodiversity. I'm talking about autism. All sorts of other things are neurodiverse. I want to find jobs for people with autism.
Yeah.
So it's a battle, but I keep at it. And
well, we thank you for the work that you do. I mean, honestly, Don, like, I remember us first meeting in 2018, and the fact that you came down and you saw where I worked and you met everyone. It was a huge deal, and it felt like someone was really taking it seriously. And I remember being in there, and I remember you telling the story about the Autism Act and how Cheryl Gillian, who's no longer with us, had to get the Autism Act in and rallied everyone from every party they could find.
It's a brilliant job.
And I just wanted to get your thoughts as well, because obviously I participated very smallly in the Robert Buckland report, but they reached out and, I said my bit, and gave my two thoughts. But obviously with the white paper that's just came out, there's some stuff in it which is good, which is, the increased inclusion, the focus on early support, standardization support, improved transition. But what I worry about is obviously the risk to EHCPs, which is coming up, the lack of definition, mainstream feasibility, and system pressure, and reduced parental input. I saw, so I want to get your thoughts on that, but also I did see, I saw a video of you as well in the chambers, and you said about, I think it was 130,000 autistic children are said to be in mainstream schools, and we know that about half of them, over half of them, will be expelled for unlawful reasons. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on all of the. Sorry, it was a bit of a barrage of question there, but
it's happened in the area where I live. I mean, a young lad who is autistic has been sent home a number of times, and it isn't that the school is uncaring; they're just not geared up to understand that someone with autism does from time to time have a bit of a blow up. And I went to a school in South Wales a year or more ago now. It's got a mainstream school, and attached to the mainstream school, but separate but integrated as well, are three other units: one for autism, young people with autism, one with speech difficulties, and one with sight difficulties. And they meet together as a whole school from time to time, but they have these units within, and there's a link and working and so on and so forth between them. And as I finished my visit, the head said, "I want you to meet this young lad. He's got behavioural problems. He's about to go to comprehensive school now in September, but he is working hard to try and overcome his problems." So she introduced me, and she said, "This is his name." And he said, "You hear I've got behavioural problems?" "Yes," I said. "I'm trying to do something about it," looking at her for approval. And then he said, "My brother's 5. He's autistic. He's got behavioural problems. I'm helping my mother help him." "Oh, that's very good." He said, "I'm going to comprehensive school." I said, "Yes." Yes. I say, looking forward to it? Yes, I'm looking forward to it. And I've decided on my career. Have you? What are you going to be? I'm going to become a high court judge. And if you come up before me, you'll get a lenient sentence.
Oh,
But what she was trying to get across, when she did effectively, he has recognized he has problems. With the right support in school, then he is coping, challenging himself, overcoming. It won't go away, but it will certainly be better able to cope. And we desperately need that, because all the demands on education, teachers and other things these days, there's new things come out, and it's a very great challenge, but we can't abandon young people with autism. And it isn't just good enough to put them in mainstream schools. And I agree it'd be a good idea, but we've got to have the right support. I can remember in a previous life, I was chairman of the County Council's Finance Committee, and we had a problem of the social budget for support, special educational needs support, was overspent by £1 million.
wow.
And what we found is that the person responsible for approving all applications approved every application. Great, but then we put a small team from our finance department in to look how it was operating, what benefits we were getting, and they focused on a young lad who was Downs, and he had support in the classroom, but at break time he was over there. Nobody bothered with him. Now that's not right, and this is sometimes a gap, I think, in mainstream schools, where it's not appreciated that it isn't just in the classroom and so on and so forth. You need that support elsewhere. And I know again from family experience, where someone close to me in my family has been having one-to-one support, but you have to be careful, because the danger is, and simply in her case, that she then doesn't bother with her friends anymore. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And become totally dependent upon the person who's been brilliant, but it's not. So we have to work at getting that integration. And last Wednesday, I was down at a school in. It's a speech. It's run by the Speech and Language Charity. I'm a pen pal. I'm a pen pal for Swan Class, and so I went. They did this story about the Iron Man and acted it out for me, and so on and so forth. But the work between the teachers and the staff and the young people was so close, so beautifully done, that no one was left out, no one was alone, and I was really, really impressed by it. And they sent me a Christmas card. They drew up this Christmas card for me. They had to draw little pictures in it, and so on. And another school I've been visiting, when I went there, was asked, "Do you know the King?" I said, "Well, I've met the King." "You've met the King?" "Yes, I've met the King." So somebody quickly drew a picture. They all signed it and said, "Would I give this picture to the King?" Um, and, so these little things in which they reach out, and if we respond, you get a huge response back, and that adds to the quality of life, their confidence. And I certainly saw it. Didn't just meet the young people. I met some of the parents. One fellow said to me, "My son never went out. He's 18. He never went out on his own ever. Now, because of this, he's been there 6 months. It's working. He now has some friends. He goes out, perhaps on a Saturday, or goes out on a Friday, or So the quality of life is dramatically changed just about doing those simple things. So more mentoring. We need a good mentoring program. We need to understand that not everybody works in mainstream. But where we can, I certainly saw this example here in Wales, where there's mainstream with these units attached, and there is a mix and integration, but they have the support of a special unit for the rest of the time, which is good. It's important, and I mean, you saw that with the support and help you had.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up going to an SEN school, and even though my school didn't do GCSEs, it was definitely the best place for me in terms of support, because at the time when I was at school, I think I just got lost in that sort of mainstream environment, because
Mm.
there's too many kids, there's too many kids to look after, to think about, and I don't think the training was there at the time either. I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
improved, but I think from the statistics as well, and from things like the white paper, when there's there's some pros in it, but then there's also some cons,
Mhm.
and it is worrying.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what made you want to get into politics and also the work that you do with autism? Because,
Well, I mean, I come from a village, a mining village called Abersychan in the South Wales Valleys that produced 5 members of parliament. A man called Arthur Jenkins, who was a miners' leader. He became an MP, Parliamentary Private Secretary of the Prime Minister, Clem Attlee. His son, Roy Jenkins, became Chancellor of the Exchequer, President of the European Commission. A man called Will Coleridge, who was a miner, represented a seat in Bristol. My oldest friend, Paul Murphy, our first photograph taken at the age of 3, he became an MP, Secretary of State for Wales, Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, and I became an MP. And our village was a typical mining village in the South Wales Valleys. Most people were, poorish, poor. I mean, I never realized so much when I was growing up how we were poor. My father was a miner for 43 years. My mother was a home help. And in our village, we needed to do things. And so Paul and I were active. We'd known each other from, as I say, from the age of 3. And we joined the Labour Party. And we felt this was our vehicle to try and make things better and change. And we became councillors and did things like that. But it's trying to say, well, here we have a wonderful community. It's struggling in many ways. It needs support. It can do lots of things for itself, given the right support and encouragement. And that, in the South Wales Valleys, that was typical over many decades. It's the mining communities were poor. But see, the miners' welfare, the miners' hall, our miners' hall in Abersychan, we had a library where you could go and read newspapers every day, borrow books, a billiard room, a dance hall, and so on and so forth. It was the centre of social life. And the other big thing in our community was the cooperative movement. I mean, the co-op store, our co-op, we had a department store with furniture, clothes, food. We even had a slaughterhouse for cattle behind where they used to slaughter and sell the meat in the butcher's shop. They had a chemist. It was all part of the community. So whereas the Miners' Institute, supported by the National Union of Mine Workers, provided the welfare with the library and billiards and all the rest of it, the co-op, they were the co-op amateur actors. They were the co-op operatic society. So you had music and drama, all these kind of things, all inspired by the National Union of Mine Workers and the cooperative movement, which gave a quality of life to people in the South Wales Valleys that they would not have otherwise had. And that really got me interested and active and so on and so forth. But yes, I mean, we were very fortunate. It was hard. My father was 43 years underground. He had a brain tumor. Thank God it was operable. He lived for another 11, 12 years.
wow.
But the Coal Board gave him a pension after 43 years of £1 a week. £1 a week. And if he got another job, it would go down to 6 and 8 pence. What's that, about 30 pence these days?
Wow.
After 43 years underground. So there weren't, the wages were better than when they were privatized. There was a pension scheme, but it's better now, but it was a struggle. And I mean, I'm an honorary member of the National Union of Mine Workers because I was part of the campaign to get miners' compensation. There was a case brought that showed that miners, their chest illnesses were caused by working underground and dust. And there was a big campaign, and the government, Gordon Brown was the Chancellor, agreed that the government would compensate. And the area that I live in and that I represented in Parliament, over £50 million was paid out to miners in this area and their families for what they'd suffered underground and their life. One fella I used to go and visit, he couldn't come to me because he was on oxygen most of the time. And he said, when the grandchildren come now and they say, hey, grandcha, can you lend me a tenner? He says, no, I can give him one. He said, I never had any money when my own children were growing up.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle for people, but there was a great feel in the community of community importance, of working together, being positive. And as I said, we had the Miners' Institute and the cooperative apparatics and drama and all that added to quality of life. So we might have been poor in cash terms, but we weren't poor in knowledge and literature and hopes and aspirations.
And then how about the sort of transition to then the autism? Because you've been, I think you're vice president of the National Autism Society. You've been in the all parliamentary party groups. What sort of, I mean, you've done a lot. I mean, Lord, you're secretary under the Secretary of State, Defence Minister for Veterans, but with the autism, because it means a lot
Yeah.
to me.
What motivated me, I think, is that my late wife, we moved to a place called, rather nice little village in both lived. Jennifer was a legal secretary. I was a journalist on the local paper. And we bought this house. And 2 doors away, our neighbour had a Down syndrome son. And we got friendly with our neighbours. And about 5 doors away was a day centre for people with Down syndrome. And my wife, Jennifer, together with our neighbour, used to organise the weekly or fortnightly meetings of parents and activities for the young people. And I remember Jennifer coming home to me after the first couple of meetings and said, well, all the parents do is sit down talking and drinking tea. And we've got to do something with the young people. And then it clicked on her. It hit her. That was their time to share, oh, my Johnny has done this, my Mary can do that, and so on. So that was important for the parents and the ongoing support. And so Jen used to go around the comprehensive schools to recruit young people in the sixth form to come and organize a youth club. And they actually opened a youth club. And that got me interested in supporting and working with people with special needs of any kind. And when I became a member of parliament in this area, we had a charity that was campaigning for people with any kind of disability. I became their president. And one of their big campaigns was to get more access to train stations, because in our area, the commuter line only had 2 stations where there was a lift, and things like that. They used to go around, if they found cars parked on pavement, they would stick notices on it. Pavements are for people, shift it. Because if you've got a wheelchair,
Yeah.
So we decided one Saturday, get 2 of our members in the town of nearby, and 2 able-bodied people, and we sat them in wheelchairs. And I pushed one, and one of my friends pushed another, and it really hit me. Because we'd go up through town and someone would say, how do you cope with him then? Is he all right? As if the person in the wheelchair couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
And it brought home to me, Max, perhaps in former times, that's how we all were. If someone was different, or you didn't talk to him, you talked to his mother or father, because he or she, well, there's something wrong there, and that really brought it home to me of how we need to engage positively, actively with people with learning difficulties, physical difficulties, autism, Downs, and so on and so forth, in order to help and to understand them, in order to understand their hopes and aspirations. And so I got involved to some degree. And then I joined the all-party group many years ago. Before that, I was chairman of the Down syndrome group. And interestingly, there we did a report on how the health service responds to people with Down's syndrome. And you possibly know that people with Downs, they can sometimes have heart problems that if they are treated early, they get a better quality of life. And one woman gave us evidence. Her son, a young son, had minor heart surgery. And she was by his bedside as he was coming out of the stress of the surgery and all the drugs they gave him and so on and so forth. And he seemed distressed. So she called a nurse. And the nurse said, oh, don't worry, dear. He's Downs. They don't feel pain.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And another couple gave us evidence. And they said that they did not know that she'd given birth. They did not know that the baby was going to be Downs. And they were coming to terms with it. And as they were, she was tearful. They were both emotional. In breezes the doctor on his round that day. And they said, they didn't know that their little child was going to be Downs. Oh, leave that one here, go home and have another one, he said. Now, now, thank God that isn't typical of the health service. But it hit me that if the key service to our quality of life in terms of healthcare, you do get people who do not see it in that way, then we do need to challenge and to educate and persuade people. And then, as I say, when I became active in the APPG autism, I came across this book, The Reason I Jump. I may have mentioned to you before, written by a young Japanese boy, Naoki Ikashida. And it's not a heavy read of any kind. There's about 52 questions in there. And the questions are about 15, 20 words and a 20, 30 word answer. Why don't I give you eye contact? And he explains why he doesn't give you eye contact. Why don't I do as I'm told straight away? And he explains then when he's told to do something, he can't do it instantly because he's got to process how am I going to, do I want to do it? How can I do it? Shall I do it now? And so on. And so this awakening, this enlightenment, I think, for me anyway, got me to understand that there are people who are challenged, who need support, encouragement, and are entitled to have the same quality of life that I as anybody else. And so we need champions, and I'm one of a number of vice president of the National Autistic Society. My colleague Baroness Angela Browning is brilliant. She's been a vice president for many, many more years and works very hard. But we do need people to take up the case, because with the best will in the world, there are so many competing demands upon health and education and so on and so forth. If we don't argue our case, then won't be pushed aside, but it won't get the attention it deserves. And the Buckland Review, that was excellent in my view, I think. And so this is why I've been focusing as much as I can on trying to get opportunities for people with autism into work. Because you saw, I mean, you're a living example of the right support, the encouragement, that housing association were determined to give you a job, whatever you did with maths.
Yeah.
2 and 2 make 9, whatever you say. I was never good at maths either, but that was your opening, wasn't it? That gave you the confidence to do all the things you did, directing plays, actor, all the other things you've done since. The right opportunity, and look at you now, the quality of life you've got, amazing.
I think you're right. You've got to have that supportive network of people around you. And if you've got people that are ignorant and not willing to learn or understand, then you're not going to have a good experience. That place that I worked at, that housing association, was willing for me to fail maths 30 times. Do you know what I mean? They didn't, there was
Yeah.
no time restraint. There was no, it would have, we will just keep going because you're a good worker. We like you. We want to support you. And you get a two-way thing there. You get a good employer that will do anything for you and work hard.
Yeah.
And you then had someone that was happy to come into work every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it does sort of lead me to as well, at the moment, I think when we first met, we had the National Autistic Society did a study because I was part of the Too Much Information campaign. Could you stand?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think at the time the statistics showed that it was around 16% of autistic people in full-time work. And then I think part of the Green Paper, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the government would take account of what number it is. And I think the first official number we had was from the Office of National Statistics to say it was 22% between 30%. But what we found out through that, because when I first heard the number, I thought the number had gone up, I thought, but then I found out that is actually for any form of work. So that's volunteer, that's
it's not,
so the number hadn't gone up. What would you say to, employees and maybe the government that are in now? We see things like the white paper come out. Is there things in it that you would think maybe we should rethink that? And how do we encourage, employers to hire autistic people?
I think the important thing is to understand, people who are working on these projects need to understand what it is like to be autistic. We can't be autistic, but you can get a learning and an insight. And I say that book, which I recommend to lots of people, The Reason I Jump, gives you, this is the world through the eyes of an autistic person. And if you understand that, and then well, I need to do X, Y, and Z to make this work. And it's the same with getting people into employment. we got to try and use those people who've been successful in doing it to be mentors to persuade other companies. We had a project in Wales some years ago, nothing to do with, but we had people who had retired, Max. They'd been successful business people, so they were asked to become mentors for the Max Green Don Touhig paperweight company. So we were setting up business, say, and they would come, one of these guys would come, or one of the women would come and talk to us, and now you need to do this, you need to do that, and so on. Or perhaps we'd started the business, we had a few problems. So you've got people who had successful careers, and we use them as mentors to help grow other people like you or me who had the idea of starting a business. Now, it's the same with those who've employed people with autism. We need to get an organization set up whereby we can call on them, who will go out and explain how easy it is, easy in terms of, it doesn't bring the sky down and all the rest of it, but just see the positive side of it, and people will do it. And it is hard. I mean, I was a minister, as you said, and getting governments to change our focus sometimes on these, and there's so many things that come across, and I fully understand. But it does worry me at the moment that the view of government departments keeps talking about neurodiversity, which covers all sorts of things. I'm talking about autism, and I'm trying to persuade them, do this work on autism. We have this the project, don't we, to reduce the unemployed among disabled people, but all sorts of things are in there. I mean, somebody who had for all sorts of reasons, that not autistic or physical, but couldn't work, and now working. Oh, that's another one. It's too wide. It's not specific enough. And this is what worries me about this use of this term neurodiversity all the time. I am trying to push the case for people with autism to get into employment, to have a quality of life. I don't deny anybody else for anything they want to support, and that's perfectly right and proper. But I don't want it lost in this barrel of words of neurodiversity. Or that could mean this, that could mean that. No, I'm specific. Talking about people with autism.
You want to fight one thing.
Yeah, fight one thing.
Before you can sort the rest.
And it's no good me when I put down questions and I get answers from departments to say, oh, neurodiverse people, this neurodiverse. Yes, but I'm not talking about people with autism, and it really does frustrate me. But we've got to keep battling on. And we've got to keep encouraging the various charities and so on and so forth. I mean, without, no matter how good, Max, government is in providing services and support for people, without the voluntary sector, the quality of life for most people would not be what it is. I've seen that, as I say, when my wife was a volunteer for MenCap, how they enhanced the life of young people with Down syndrome and supported their parents. I've seen it now with the National Autistic Society and so on and so forth. We do, we do need that, and that is so important that we focus specifically on certain issues and work on them to try and make progress. I mean, I time and again, perhaps. Don't misunderstand me. I don't mean in a silly, pompous way, anything like that. But I got up to speak in the House of Lords, perhaps on some things like this, and I often start with, what I'm looking for is to ensure that someone with autism has the same quality of life as anybody else sitting in the House of Lords. And these are doctors, scientists, engineers, politicians, yes, but people of all, actors, ballerinas, even, and so on and so forth. Well, we've got to recognise that their right to the quality of life that we have should be shared by everybody, and that means giving support, encouragement, funding, but also being specific to try and help. And in my case, my argument is people with autism.
But it does worry me with what we see over in the States with Trump and everything else, and I feel like we were making such progress here, but then we see the rise of the Reform Party and everything else, and now on about getting rid of the Equality Act and all this stuff. And it just makes me feel like we've made all this process, and then we could be heading steps back.
I think I understand. I share some of your concerns there, but I do think that most people are the sort of people who will want to see fairness for everybody. fair opportunities for people, regardless of age, health, or whatever. They perhaps they aspire to a good quality of life, and they don't see why everybody else shouldn't have a good quality of life. And I do think that in our society, not just in Britain but in other countries too, overwhelmingly, people want good for all people. You do get the, well, the odds are, all the preaching hatred and discontent and so on and so forth. And yes, they're there, but we've got to challenge them all the time, because I think the majority of people in these islands are not like that. They're tolerant, they're patient, they're understanding, they're friendly, and that's what it's like being human, to me anyway. To be, it's whether you have a faith in a god or not, it's entirely up to people. But I certainly think that being patient, tolerant, and understanding. I have a friend of mine now died, Leo Absu. Leo was an MP for 13 years and did a lot of legislation, private members' legislation, which helped improve the quality of life for all sorts of smaller minority groups, you might say, within society. And when he retired, he said, I only have one piece of advice for my successors, my friends. Tolerate everyone. Tolerate everything. Just never, ever tolerate the people who are intolerant. And I think, I might not like the fact that I'm in a room and you're smoking. Tolerate it. I might not the fact that you said something that, but when people are so intolerant that they will never listen, they will always attack, they're always verbally aggressive. That's our danger. If we let people like that, for whether it's people, they don't like people of color, people of different nationalities, and whatever, we must always challenge those who are intolerant. Tolerate everyone. Tolerate everything, just never, ever tolerate the intolerant. And what have we got in this country? Well, we're a free people. We are free to say what we want. We're free to go where we want. We're free to do what we want. We're even free to vote for who we want. Now, that freedom is precious. And the work that you've been doing, that I've been supporting in terms of improving the quality of life for people with autism, we can only do that because we have these freedoms. So many countries around the world, there isn't that kind of freedom.
No, I absolutely agree. All I can say is thank you, Don, for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. So thank you for spending the time and coming on today. It's been brilliant. And guys, that does conclude this year's Autism Connection Series 7. I want to thank everyone that makes this series so special. 7 years of doing this, and I'll be honest, it was the first year where I thought, am I going to do it, am I not? Which is why I made the decision as well to take it all online, go back to the roots of the Autism Connections where it first started, which is during COVID. It's really important for me to get this out during Autism Acceptance Week, and it was a priority this year, as last year I just managed to miss it. And even though I think Autism Acceptance Week should be longer than a week, it's important for me to not only carry on doing the ambassador work I do, but also my full-time job. But it's important for me to get this series out because it means so much to me. So I do want to thank all the people who was involved in this series, and those people being Don, Robin, Tanya, Paul, and Lord Touhig. Thank you all for being just honest and open and agreeing to take part in this series. It really means a lot to me. So guys, thank you for watching. Take care and goodbye for now.